Good evening. My name is Kacper Paradowski and you are watching Poland Daily News. Less than 1 week is left until the meeting of the heads of government of the European Union countries, and it seems that there is no chance for a compromise on the EU budget. Poland and Hungary remain united and disagree with payments of European funds to member states being allocated on the basis of the so-called rule of law. Polish Prime Minister Morawiecki was the first to present his stance, and Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán did not hesitate to support the Polish decision. He insists that the two matters must be separate. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán said on Friday that a possible compromise to unlock a stalemate over the EU's 1.8 trillion budget and recovery package will not work, lowering hopes that it might open a path to a deal. Hungary and Poland have blocked the spending plan over their opposition to a new mechanism linking EU funding to respect for rule of law criteria, fueling tensions ahead of the meeting of EU heads of state and government next week. Nevertheless, on Thursday, Polish Deputy Prime Minister Jarosław Gowin said Warsaw could potentially accept a binding interpretation declaration to clarify how Brussels would use the mechanism. The declaration was approved by the bloc's 27 heads of state and government. However, on Friday morning, the Polish government spokesperson reiterated that Warsaw maintains its position in its entirety. When asked by state-owned Kossuth Radio about the Polish Deputy Prime Minister's statement, Hungary's Orbán dismissed the declaration as unworkable. He said the Hungarian government insists that the issues of funding and the rule of law be separated. While the Hungarian leader had agreed in July to European Council conclusions which had mentioned the rule of law mechanism, Budapest and Warsaw had interpreted the text differently from their counterparts in other European capitals. Speaking of an idea which was floated by the European Commission to move ahead with creating a new recovery fund without Budapest and Warsaw, the Hungarian leader questioned whether such a solution would be possible under the bloc's rules and said that Hungary's planned participation in the recovery fund currently on the table is a favour and a gesture of solidarity to other member countries. The Prime Minister also argued both Hungary and Poland would not lose out financially if the bloc's 2021-2027 EU budget is not adopted on time. That is disputed by EU officials who say the country would experience funding cuts and delayed payments if the bloc is forced to start 2021 with a limited backup budget. 30 years ago, Polish coal mines employed almost 500,000 people. Today, there are just over 60,000 left, and by the middle of the century, Poland wants to abandon the use of hard coal for energy purposes. But will mining traditions disappear? One of the most beautiful traditions takes place on December 4th, Miners' Day, on the day of Saint Barbara. Miners and employees of oil companies began the day with a holy mass and ended with ceremonial meetings. This tradition dates back to the Middle Ages. This year, a celebration of Miners' Day are taking place in a different format than usual. Polish President Andrzej Duda sent well wishes to miners across the country. Miners never abandon their brothers in need. I pay tribute to all those who have suffered the greatest sacrifice and have gone to the eternal shipyard. Due to demanding working conditions, miners belong to the groups of professionals that were particularly affected by the coronavirus pandemic. I would like to express my gratitude to all miners who have overcome coronavirus infection and are donating plasma and helping the seriously ill. Saint Barbara was established as the patron saint of miners in the 17th century. The first ceremonies took place in the mid-18th century in the form of a mass. Over time, additional customs were included. Barburka is a special holiday for miners. This year, they spend the holiday in their homes. Every year we begin this day with a mass in Katowice. Then we lay flowers under the cross symbolizing 9 fallen miners of the Wujek coal mine and at the Guild of Saint Barbara. Barburka is celebrated by miners throughout the country. In Poland, there are over 7,500 mining plants employing over 180,000 people, including 80,000 in hard coal mines. The Polish government has announced a national COVID-19 vaccination program. Starting today, volunteers can enroll to participate. An optimistic scenario assumes that 1 million Poles will be protected from the virus each month. Our main goal is establishing vaccination points in every municipality. We can establish that on the scale of Poland, this will be around 8,000 points. In large agglomerations, there will also be reserve hospitals, which will serve as mass vaccination points.
Rozwiązaniem problemu będą szczepienia.
The solution to the problem are vaccinations. They will be available in January at the earliest. The effects of these vaccines will be visible after about 6 weeks, as most vaccinations require 2 doses.
Dlatego, że W większości szczepionek będą wymagane 2 dawki.
Apeluję o to, żeby
I appeal to you, vaccinate yourself as soon as the opportunity arises. Thanks to this, not only do we protect our lives and health, but also Polish workplaces.
miejsca pracy.
The Ministry of Health has reported 13,239 new cases of coronavirus infection in the last 24 hours. 531 patients died due to the disease. The total number of deaths since the outbreak of the pandemic has reached 20,000. The so-called Women's Strike is an organization claiming to represent Polish women. For several weeks, despite the COVID-19 pandemic, the Women's Strike has been calling for mass street protests. Although the numbers of supporters have been falling recently, the organizers are putting an increasing number of stringent demands on the government. It seems that young Poles have abandoned mass protests against demands for access to abortion, as well as the abolition of religious lessons in schools. A question arises whether attendance at rallies will be increased by demands to fight climate change and the lowering of standards of education in schools.
W przyszłym tygodniu walczymy nie tylko o prawa człowieka, nie tylko o praworządność, nie tylko o budżet.
Next week we are preparing to fight not only for human rights, not only for the rule of law, not only for the budget, not only for the reconstruction fund. We are fighting for the future, and the young people are leading this fight. I also assume that this information will reach not only Polish but also European politicians. We strive to make it happen. It is important for everyone to be aware that such protests are taking place in Poland.
Wspólnego głosu i głosu młodzieży, popartego przez głos nas wszystkich protestujących.
That's all for tonight. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for Poland Daily Business. Good night.